أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. First off, because there's just curiosity, who memorized? I know it's very short notice, but these two, anybody? Really? Oh, did you know it already? Oh, no, good for you, mashallah. Okay, no big deal for this one. Next time though, for the next passage, I expect more. Next one I think is going to be very special, inshallah. This one, as you guys know, we've been talking for the last 3-4 sessions, I forget myself, I think 3 sessions, including the one with Ashad, about a passage where it was basically a journey to faith, yes, with Ulil Albab and the person that was talking to Allah, thinking about the skies and the earth, and eventually came to Islam, right? We talked about that. And last time we concluded with Allah responding to that dua, فَسَجَابَ لَهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ أَنِّي لَا أُضِيعُ عَمَلَ عَامِلٍ, that Allah does not lose the actions of the people who act. And we ended it there. But you'll notice there's still one more session on this journey to faith thing. And I won't, before we switch to another passage, and it's actually the opposite story, what I want to do today. So that passage in Ali Imran that a lot of you memorize, alhamdulillah, that 190 to 195 or whatever it was, that was the journey to faith. And that one you can even think of it as like a non-Muslim coming to Allah in like modern day 2024. This is the opposite. This is the flip side of the coin. What is the process for someone in faith to lose their faith? That's what we're going to talk about today. Needless to say, these are terrifying ayat from a terrifying surah. I taught you guys before that surahs have audiences, right? We talked about this extensively before, especially like when it comes to certain passages we talked about, but I'm going to reiterate that. Surahs have audiences. A lot of surahs do. Sometimes it's just general, sometimes there's specific audiences. For example, a lot of Quran that was revealed in Mecca, the audience are disbelievers, like people that outright reject the Prophet ﷺ that's living in front of them in the flesh, and a lot of it is talking to them. What's wrong with you? Fear hell. I will deal with them. فَمَهِّلْهُمْ رُوَيْدًا, right? Like all these different things. So the Prophet ﷺ even trying to console him. Don't worry about what they say. We'll take care of them. That's a lot of Quran. It's like talking to disbelievers, talking to the Prophet ﷺ directly, and a lot of surahs obviously talk to believers directly. Sometimes the surah will talk to humanity at large. People that don't belong in any group actually. We'll call them the agnos, or like the others, the other group. Maybe Christians that have the propensity to believe, Jews that have the propensity to believe, so on and so forth, okay? This surah is really tough. And I don't want to go into like the surah itself. The surah is Hadid. It's called Al-Hadid. Surah 57. Yes? Yeah, 57. If you want to follow along, by the way, open up your phone. We're going to start 57, ayah 12. That's where we're going to start. So those of you that want to look on, we're starting from Surah 57, ayah number 12. That's where we're starting, inshallah. But just a quick intro of Surah Al-Hadid at large. The audience is Muslims, specifically. That's the audience. This is revealed in Medina. The scary thing about this, though, is not a very loving surah. It's the audience are believers, but we're talked to as if we're disbelievers, actually. Like this is a surah where Allah commands Muslims to come to Islam, if that makes any sense. You need to come all over again. You need to come back into the faith all over again because you're getting shaky. That's what this surah is about. It really gives you like an emotional beating, really. If you read through the surah and really reflect on it, the believer you just put your head down, like I can't believe I'm being talked to like this. That's what Hadid is all about. And in the heart of Hadid, Allah gives this what we'll call a 4-step process to losing your faith. And I want to talk about this to some degree. Allah says in different parts, like you've heard probably, for example, يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. You've heard this before. Allah takes people from darknesses and brings them to what? To light. But you also see the opposite. يُخْرِجُهُمْ مِنَ النُّورِ إِلَى الظُّلُمَاتِ. That Allah takes some people from light into darknesses. The other can also happen as well. And to make sense of this, I want to review something that we reviewed a while ago because it's going to be very pertinent to this, okay? In the beginning of Baqarah, Allah introduces His outlook of humanity. He buckets people in what I will right now argue to be 4 groups. It looks like 3, some people argue 2 or 3. I think there might be a 4th one that I'll talk about right now. The first one is believers, okay? The second one is what we call kuffar. We'll call them disbelievers for now. The third one are who? Who is a complicated third group? Munafiqun, yes. We talked about this before. Okay. The 4th group, eventually, Allah actually opens up the call and says, Ya ayyuhan nas ittaqu rabbakum. People, Be wary of Allah, or be mindful of Allah. The reason why that probably does not include kuffar is because when he introduced kuffar, he said that there's a seal on their heart and they're never going to believe. Why would you call people to faith who you just said will never have faith? So actually it buckets people, believers, disbelievers, munafiqun, which we'll talk about in a second, we'll go back to that, and then the other category, we'll call them people who have the propensity to believe. For example, the passage we just did, the journey to faith, that was that group coming to faith actually when you think about it. People that, they're not kafir, because it's not like they rejected, they didn't know enough about it to reject it. A kafir is a strong term, by the way, I will add. Someone who's a non-Muslim, you can't automatically say kafir. Kafir is a psychological choice. Kafir is like when you have made the choice, like you know it's the truth, you reject it again and again and again, and then eventually Allah says, you know what, you are way beyond bounds now, I'm sealing your heart. You have fun with your life. It's not an immediate thing. It's not like you're born with a seal on your heart. It's a series of decisions that lead to that consequence spiritually. You understand? Those people, they're not kuffar. There's no seal on their heart. They didn't reject anything. They still have a chance. You understand? And even there's debate what happens to them on Judgment Day. Allahu alam, the right answer is really we don't know for sure. And may Allah have mercy on all of us, but that's, we don't know anything happens there. The third group though, munafiqun, that's what's going to be highlighted here. I'll remind you, some people argue munafiq is the same as kafir. Like they'll put those two together. Because a kafir is just someone that outwardly and inwardly he does not believe. A munafiq is someone who on the inside doesn't believe, but on the outside pretends to be a believer. And this is the scariest group for all believers, as we know, because there's two types. There's a munafiq who knows they're munafiq, like maybe they're a spy in the community. We've had even in Orland Park our fair share of those people that pretend to be converts and Muslims and come and try to do messed up stuff. There was one that literally later on he put on LinkedIn he's part of the FBI. SubhanAllah. Really, that's a munafiq, and he's gonna answer to that with Allah, like a serious crime. There is nothing worse than munafiq. Kafir is better than munafiq, actually, technically. It's like a subsect of kufr that's even worse than the actual whole of it. You understand? He's going to answer for that. But then there's the branch of munafiqun that don't know they're munafiqun. That's the scary part. There's hypocrites that don't know they're hypocrites, that really believe they believe, but on the inside there's nothing. Their heart is just dead. Okay? And that's going to be really important to remember, those four groups, when we get to this part. Okay? So Allah opens up this discussion about how people lose their iman, lose their faith, with a scene from, not really a story, but a scene from Judgment Day. Sometimes Allah takes scenes from the future and puts them in the book so you can kind of see things happening in real time before you have to experience them. This is one such case. He starts off, again starting from ayah 12, if you're following along. يَوْمَ تَرَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَسْعَى نُورُهُمْ بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَبِأَيْمَانِهِمْ. The day that you will see the believing men and the believing women. We talked about last time, even Allah says, لا أضيع عمل عامل منكم من ذكر أو أنثى. Remember that? We talked about that last time. Allah will not lose the deeds of anyone who does good, be they male or female. It's Allah in these rare cases where He calls out male and female deeds or belief, as if to honor both. They look different, but they're both extremely honorable. It's calling them out specifically. The same thing is happening here. يَوْمَ تَرَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. He could have just said mu'mineen. Mu'mineen, by the way, includes both already. The Jama in the masculine form already includes females as well. But to call out both, and Allah does not make mistakes in His speech, is to call out actually women as well. Their faith is something special as well. It's something honorable to call out specifically as well. So يَوْمَ تَرَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. And by the way, the day that you will see, who's the you? Who's you? The day that you will see the believing men and believing women. Who is that?
Us?
No. Not you all. You, singular. The Prophet ﷺ. Anytime you hear Allah out of context saying you, 9 times out of 10 it's the Prophet ﷺ he's addressing. Meaning, they will be so honored, you will look at them on Judgment Day. Everyone else is going wild. Their eyes are everywhere, but you're looking at them. That's an honor, inshallah, may Allah make us of them. Say Ameen. That's an honor on us right away, the day that you will see them. May Allah make us people that He sees. Inshallah. يَسْعَى نُورُهُمْ بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَبِأَيْمَانِهِمْ. Light is pouring out running out. Sa'i to run, to like walk briskly. Light is coming out bayna aydihim, meaning from their chests, coming out from here, and from aymanihim, from their right hand. So light is coming out of their chest, coming out of their right hand. Now what does this mean? What's the light of the chest? What do you do in this world that will get you light from the chest in the afterlife? Iman. Your heart. In this life, we see Iman as a light, a spiritual. It's not something that you see. You can't cut someone open and see their Iman in their heart. That's not how that works. But in Akhirah, everything that had a spiritual reality here has a physical reality there. You understand? That's always the case. You will see, for example, a lot of punishments of the grave match exactly the things that they were doing in this life. It's like the punishment fits the crime, for example. But let's not get into that. There, in the next life, you will have light coming out of your chest, inshallah, light coming out of your right hand, inshallah, if we're among these people. The light from their chest is the light of their faith, of their iman, that they believed in Allah, they believe in the last day, they believe in the messenger and the Quran, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, that's number one. وَبِأَيْمَانِهِمْ, and from the right hand. Anytime you hear the right hand in Islam, Allah talking about aymanihim, what's He referring to? Deeds. So you already have the pairing Allah is talking about with the deeds and the iman. And that light's coming out. It's like an Iron Man situation you can kind of think of, yeah? It's like light's coming out of them from this way. Now, why is this significant? And why is it significant for the scene He's painting? I want you to remember, this is a scene from Judgment Day. Judgment Day is dark. Extremely dark. You cannot see anything on Judgment Day unless Allah provides you a light. And what Allah is saying is these people are the only people provided with light. So these people are on their way to Jannah. They already know they succeeded and they're on their way. And it's dark the entire way except for this flashlight that they have. And we even have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said some people's light on that day will be like a, I'll call it like a broken flashlight. It's not words he used, words I'm paraphrasing. Where it's like you can barely see in front of you. So they're walking really slowly, like it's like barely on. And they're looking in front of them. They can see maybe they're right in front of them. They can see one step at a time. So right before danger happens, they're able to stop and maybe do a U-turn or something. You understand? And some people, may Allah make us of them, their light is so strong that it lights up from one city to another. Like a floodlight. Extremely strong light coming from them. Okay, you guys understand the scene so far? Okay. Bushrakumul yawm. Then someone comes on the PA system of Judgment Day. Bushrakumul yawm. Congratulations. Jannatun tajri min tahtiha al-anhar. Gardens, multiple gardens underneath which rivers flow. Khalidina fiha. You're going to live in them forever. ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. What an amazing success that you've achieved, basically. ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. That is the strong success, the amazing success. And then we're given the opposite scene. Notice how the slight change in language. Let me see if you can catch on to it actually. That was the day that you will see believing men, believing women. They're given this big news. They have this light coming out on their way to Jannah. Okay, it's dark around them. And then Allah flips it to another group of people. يَوْمَ يَقُولُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ. The day that hypocritical men and hypocritical women will say, I won't tell you what they say yet. What's the difference right away though between Allah introducing that first group and Allah introducing the second group? What's the difference so far? The first group, He said the day, or the people that you will see. You will see them. Here, will the Prophet see these people? No. Not, you would expect the same language. يَوْمَ تَرَى الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ. No. Here it's the day those people say. You will not see them, but they will say this. And by the way, the hypocrisy of a man is one thing, the hypocrisy of a woman is something else. The same way that He called out and honored the iman of both genders, both of the sexes, is the same way He condemned the hypocrisy and the kufr of both of the sexes also. The crime of women is different than the crime of men in some aspects. And He's calling that out here as well. See how he's kind of equalizing the picture. But anyway, يَوْمَ يَقُولُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ. The day that the hypocritical men and women will say, لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, to the people that believe. Now these people, they come to on Judgment Day and they realize, what are they missing? They have no light. They don't have anything. Because in here there was nothing in their chest, there was nothing in this life, and they didn't do any deeds. They were actually trying to get people away from doing good deeds in dunya. So they have no light. Nothing from from the right hand, nothing out of their chest. You understand so far? The problem is it's super dark. And if it's extremely dark around you and they're looking around like I can't see anything, what can they see off in the distance? The believers in front of them, they have light. One of them has a floodlight, is going from city to city. Like it's a lot of light that they're seeing. And by the way, you can imagine when you see another light around you, you're going to go to that person. Like maybe we can put it together. And not even because you care about that other person, because you care about who? You care about yourself. So you go to other people with light, you combine it together and you go as a group. You kind of go as a herd, migrating together. Other people with light are joining you. But if we're one of these people, we have nothing. We can't see in front of us. We can't see around us. We have no idea where we came from. We have no idea what direction we're going. Nothing. We have nothing. They have nothing. Inshallah, we're not of them. They have nothing. And they look around and they see people with light. So they run after them. And Allah says here, the day that they will say, لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, to the people that believed, unzuruna, wait for us, نَقْتَبِسْ مِن نُورِكُمْ, so that we can take some of your light. Qabas is, back in the day we used torches, right? Like you use a torch and you light it on fire. Qabasa is to take a torch that's unlit and to put it on a torch that's lit so that both have fire. Does one lose anything when they give fire to another? No, the first torch doesn't become less fire because it lit something else. It's the same fire. So they're thinking, give us some of your light. We want some of that light too. Let my chest touch your hand for a minute and I'll have light as well. You won't lose anything, bro. That kind of attitude. Unzuruna naqtabis min nurikum qil arji'u wara'akum. And they will respond to them, go back to where you came from. Turn around. فَالْتَمِسُوا نُورًا, and find your own light. This is a bit of a slap in the face for them. Because these people, their hopes, munafiqun, their hopes in this life were all where? Where were all their hopes? It wasn't in Allah. What was it in? It was here in dunya. So they're being told, go back to the place you love so much, find your own light. And also, that was the only place you can get light in akhirah. The only time, the only opportunity you have. If you die and you have no deeds that you've done and you have no faith that you have, your record's sealed. There's nothing else that you can do directly for yourself. You are sealed. Obviously, if you have a believing kid and all that, yes, of course, fine, sure. But there's nothing you can do for yourself. Your record is now closed. So when they say, go back and find your own light, it's sarcasm almost, like you're done, you're cooked, you got nothing. There's no way for you to go back. فَالْتَمِسُوا نُورًا, go find your own light. فَضُرِبَ بَيْنَهُمْ بِسُورٍ لَهُ بَابٍ. So a wall drops between them. Bisur, a huge wall. Like the name Surah, by the way. A surah is like, if you ever watch Avatar, remember Ba Sing Se? Remember like the huge, okay, I gotta laugh, so yes, okay. Huge walls around the city from back in the day, like impenetrable walls. That's a sur, a wall that you cannot climb, you cannot go around. Lahu bab, but it has a door. We'll talk about that in a second. A sur drops in between them. ظاهره فيه الرحمة. On one side, the obvious side, meaning on the side of the believers, فيه الرحمة, there's love and there's care and there's mercy. وظاهره من قبله العذاب. And on the other side, coming at them is punishment. So you have they're at the door, they're trying to get through the door and it's not opening, which by the way is psychological torment. Like there's a door but there's actually no hope. You would think you see a door, you can go to the other side of the wall. These people cannot go to the other side of the wall. There's nothing they can do. And they're banging at the door. And then from behind them, you have a wall of punishment. من قبله العذاب, coming at them. من قبله العذاب means punishment is coming at them. It's going to crush them against this wall. The believers don't see anything going on. But the munafiqun on the other side are like, we're about to be crushed. This door is not opening. And they start panicking. They go into animal mode. So they call out to them. يُنَادُونَهُمْ. They scream out to them. Nada is to scream for somebody. يُنَادُونَهُمْ أَلَمْ نَكُنْ مَعَكُمْ. Were we not with you? Didn't I pray next to you? Didn't I do business with you? Didn't we fast together? أَلَمْ نَكُنْ مَعَكُمْ. We were with you. قَالُوا بَلَى. And now here comes the list. I told you this is how you lose your faith, right? So far we haven't talked about that yet. But I'll remind you, what we're talking about today is the opposite conversation. This is not a journey to faith, this is a journey of disbelief. Now that the believers have a sense of safety, because these people are cut off from them, they see a sur, a big wall that has rahmah. whatever that means. But they're seeing good news coming from this wall towards them. But they can still hear across from it. Now that they're able to think clearly, they actually step by step call out what those people did. How did they get so far? Think about this. You are not allowed to migrate to Jannah unless you go through at least some checkpoint in the beginning. So they got through some checkpoint. You understand? Like there was some checkpoint Judgment Day that they got through, but this is where they stopped. So they're saying, weren't we with you? What happened? They're so confused. And the believers call out and they tell them step by step what they did wrong. You ready for this? أَلَمْ نَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى. Of course you were. You were with us. Like physically you were around us. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. The first thing they did, however, all you people, you put yourselves in fitna. Fitna, obviously we know what fitna is. Fitna is like a test from Allah, obviously. It's a test. It's actually used for like when you purify gold. You put a gold through fitna. When you put it in the oven and you melt away impurities, that's called fatana. That's where fitna comes from. The thing that we get from that is when Allah puts us through a fitna, it's literally taking away impurities. We become a more valuable person. Just like that gold becomes more valuable after that process, we become more valuable people after that process. You understand? But these people, they put themselves in fitna. They put themselves in questionable circumstances. They would go to places they know they shouldn't go. They would visit websites they know they shouldn't visit. They would talk to people they know they shouldn't talk to. They would text at night people they shouldn't be reaching out to. They would say things they shouldn't say. They were involved in businesses they shouldn't be involved in. Worked for companies they should not be working for. You get the idea. They kept putting themselves in environments where it was a fitna for them. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. And we all find ourselves in these situations. But these people, they do something a little bit extra. فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ وَتَرَبَّصْتُمْ. And you procrastinated. You knew what you were doing. You knew where you were. You keep going to the parties, and you know I shouldn't be doing this. And there's something in you that says I shouldn't be doing this. Or you visit certain websites or whatever. When you're on your own, this can happen, by the way. You can put yourself in fitna, not going to parties and whatever. You could do it on your own. At the comfort of your own home, you put yourself in fitna. Things that we all have, things that we need to improve on. But these people, they knew what they were doing. They knew what situations they were putting themselves in. And number two, they kept on procrastinating. They knew they had to change, but they kept on saying, inshallah in the future. Ramadan's 10 months away. It's not that far off. In Ramadan, I'll change. As soon as I pay off the house, I'll stop with this haram business. I'll stop the liquor store. As soon as, this semester is over, I'll stop hanging out with these friends. As soon as I just visit this site one last time, then I'll stop visiting the site. Just one more time. Maybe 2 more times. I'll give myself to the end of the week. I'm going to Umrah in the summer. I'll wait until I go to Umrah. They keep moving the bar further and further. وَتَرَبَّصْتُمْ. The next step. وَارْتَبَتُمْ. And then you fell into doubt. Now here's where things get scary. There's obviously situations we're not supposed to put ourselves in. But I remember we talked about cognitive dissonance a little bit? Remember we talked about that to some degree from Baqarah, right? If you were here weeks ago. There's a certain point for a believer, this is Muslims by the way, technically, in this world they were Muslims. In this life they were Muslims. They kept putting themselves in these circumstances. They kept procrastinating. But what kept happening inside them every time they went to those places they weren't supposed to go and did the things they weren't supposed to do? What kept happening inside of them, do you think? They kept feeling guilty. They kept feeling like, man, I know I shouldn't be doing this. I just can't stop. I'll stop later, but I really don't want to stop. And they keep procrastinating. Now the problem with that is this. There's a thing we talked about before called cognitive dissonance. Here's basically what that means. When you have a belief that doesn't match what you're doing, you feel, I'll use the word guilty. That's where guilt comes from essentially. You know you're not supposed to be doing this thing and you're doing the thing anyway. That's when inside, when the action does not match the belief, just like believers, they had light from their heart and light from their hand, right? These people, it didn't match. They claimed light here, but then they were doing things that were messed up. You couldn't tell them from a kafir. You couldn't tell. They did the same stuff. You had no idea. You couldn't, their name might be Muhammad or whatever, or Karima or whatever their name was. But they took the actions of a non-believer. You couldn't even tell they were Muslim. The problem is eventually what happens is you become so uncomfortable with that guilt that you have two choices that you can make essentially. I'll call it's actually more, but there's really two choices. Number one, you change the action, you change the behavior. Easy. And that way it matches, you don't have to feel uncomfortable anymore. But what else can you change?
Your mindset about it?
The belief. You can change your mindset, you can change your belief. Meaning these people, they kept feeling guilty and they kept feeling guilty and kept feeling guilty. And this happened 1 time, 2 times, 5 times, 20 times, 100 times, 500 times, 700 times, 1,000 times. And they're 30 and they're 40 and they don't stop and don't stop. And eventually it's like, man, I keep feeling this guilt. But why should I feel guilty? I'm so used to it now. In fact, the only thing making me feel guilty is what? This whole Islam thing. Why do I need this anymore? The business is doing so well. I'm doing so well with women. I'm cheating at school, but I'm getting straight A's. Why should I stop? Everything's fine. If God hated me, then why is my life so good? I'm doing whatever I get to do, whatever I want to do. I get to do whatever I want to do. You see how eventually their actions become doubts about the religion altogether. And are these philosophically logical doubts? Are these like actual things that they thought about that like, oh, logically Islam doesn't make any sense. Philosophically, I don't know if I agree with it anymore. No. It came from their guilt. It came from the heart. They themselves started putting themselves into doubts because they just don't want to, if they can make Islam smaller somehow, if they can make it in their head not make sense anymore, it's 2024. I mean, do we really need the Sharia? Do we really actually need to follow the Prophet? Like, I believe in God, but I don't know. Like, the rest of it is like, it's the modern day. Do we actually need this stuff? Then shaitan got you. That kind of language, shaitan got you. And shaitan did not get you because you came up with some amazing philosophical argument. Shaitan got you because you're being a fool. You're acting a fool. You're doing stuff that you don't want, that you know you shouldn't be doing. And eventually these doubts come in. وَتَرَبَّصْتُمْ وَارْتَبْتُمْ, and you started to doubt. وَغَرَّتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي, and this is where things get really weird and annoying with Muslims. And false hopes deluded you. And this could be kind of one of two things. What does that mean that false hopes deluded you? It could be one of two things. Number one, then when you lost hope in Allah, when you lost hope in Akhirah, where do all your hopes go? They all go here. All of these false hopes, that's all you have to look forward to now. Now you become obsessed with your career. You become obsessed with the way that you look. You become obsessed with your money. You become obsessed with men, with women, with whatever, with being liked, with feeling strong, with whatever, with your celebrity status for famous people. وَغَرَّتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي, these are just hopes. They're nothing. Allah calls them hopes because that's all they are. You think it's something. But Allah says all you got to do is and it all goes away. And that's why you see, for example, people when false hopes really delude them, when they really get deluded by false hopes and they lose that thing, whatever that thing might be, whether they lose their status or they lose their strength, like they become literally, maybe their bodies or they become weak, then they become suicidal. وَغَرَّتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي. All these false hopes, they completely deluded you. But the other way, actually, that false hopes can delude you, Allah uses this word in other places, amani, false hopes. He uses it in other places. And He actually used it to talk about Bani Israel, the Jews. Some of the Jews, after a while, who totally abandoned the book, totally abandoned it, they reduced the entire religion to, oh yeah, but I think this. Like, for example, you might hear a lot from Christians especially. Yeah, I go to clubs, but I love God, and God loves me. You ever hear that before? God's so loving. I don't know. I just don't feel like I don't think He doesn't like me. I think He likes me. That's just you. You think that. You understand? You're not getting that from anywhere. He doesn't say that in any of your books, whether Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, by the way. We fall for this as well. The Jews, for example, used to say something like, yeah, we're going to go to hell, but just for like a weekend. We'll go for like a day or two for a little bit, and then on Monday we'll be in Jannah. My man, where are you getting this from? Amani. غَرَتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي. Understand? So the first way this makes sense, or the first way you can understand this, is that this dunya becomes their delusions. They become deluded by it. And the second way is they reduce their faith to just, I just think this. It's just what my heart tells me about God. That's what I have. وَغَرَتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي حَتَّى جَاءَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ. And you kept doing all of these things until the decision of Allah came, meaning until death came to you. وَغَرَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورِ. And overall, you people, shaitan just, al-gharur, the ultimate con artist. Gharra, a gharur is literally like if you go to another country and someone cons you out of money, like, oh, you need a street pass to be here. To walk these streets, you need a street pass for this 3-block radius, and you pay 50 or whatever their currency, and someone's like, what the heck's a street pass? What are you talking about? You just got scammed. That's a gharur. You got ghard. That's what gharur means. The ultimate gharur is Iblis, is shaitan. These people are saying the ultimate deceiver completely deceived you. This is how you led yourself to disbelief. I'm going to go through the process again, and then this is actually the end of the scene. Oh, actually, there's one more ayah about it, but I'm going to go through the process again. These people, in the beginning, were they Muslims or not? I want to call this out. Yes, these people were believers. These people went to the masjid. Remember, alam nakun ma'akum. Were we not with you? What does that mean? That means that I could be this person. I'm not going to use an example. I'll use myself as an example. This could be me screaming this to you guys. Alam nakun ma'akum. Wasn't I with you? This could be any one of us, is the scary thing. You understand? Remember that he takes from darkness to light, but also he can decide to take from light to darkness. This could be any one of us in this room. May Allah protect us from being these people. Say Ameen. But truly, it is something that we need to keep track of. But how in the world, what was the process? What did they do? Number one, they put themselves in situations that they were convinced they can handle. They were like, yeah, it gets everyone else, but I'm stronger. Like I heard this argument from someone, I won't say who, but I heard this argument from someone that, yeah, you know, like I know people are worrying about shaitan, but I think I'm stronger than that. And he's doing something he shouldn't be doing. I won't say what he's doing, but I think I'm just stronger than that. I don't think it's going to like take me down. You know, I don't think I'm going to end up losing my faith because of this. It's just something I like to do. No. فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. You keep putting yourselves in these circumstances. That's number one. You put yourself in circumstances like that. Number two, you procrastinated. Something kept telling you need to change, and you kept on delaying it. Number three, doubts start to set in. Do I really believe this? Is this really the truth? Do I really think that this even applies to me? Stuff like that. That's the language you start giving yourself. Not for any good reason, just because of your own nafs. And eventually, you have these really weird hopes in things that don't deserve your hope. You make things up about the deen to make yourself feel better. You will do all sorts of messed up, but you will hang a Quran on your rearview mirror because that will somehow, that protects you. That protects you. You put a huge, decorated Quran in your house that you pay for from a liquor business. But you have a huge Quran in the house. That must count for something, right? That must count for something. You have a liquor store, but under the cash register you have Ayat al-Kursi. Right? I mean, that feels good. غَرَتْكُمُ الْأَمَانِي. False hopes deluded you. That's the 4-step process that I want to call out here. فَالْيَوْمَ لَا يُؤْخَذُ مِنْكُمْ فِدْيَةٌ. No fidya will be accepted from you. No payment will be accepted from any of you. فَالْيَوْمَ لَا يُؤْخَذُ مِنْكُمْ فِدْيَةٌ وَلَا مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. And neither will it be accepted from the people who disbelieve. What's super scary about this is these people who thought themselves to be Muslims, Allah is making very clear what camp do they actually belong to. They belong to disbelievers. We will not accept payment from you, nor payment from the disbelievers. فَالْيَوْمَ لَا يُؤْخَذُ مِنْكُمْ فِدْيَةٌ وَلَا مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Okay. مَأْوَاكُمُ النَّارِ. Your final house is the fire. هِيَ مَوْلَاكُمْ. It's going to be your protector. وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرُ. And what a terrible place to go to. And now the reality sinking in with these people. Okay, I'm going to take maybe 5-minute break. We'll do a 5-minute break. You guys go ahead and get coffee and stuff, and we'll come back and finish it, inshallah. This next part, the part that I asked you to memorize, is the meat of it. I'm really excited to get this part, inshallah. So we'll cover that at 8 o'clock, inshallah. Okay, so to give you guys a break, out by believers and pointed out where their nifaq, where their kufr, where their disbelief came from. That's what we just talked about. Allah sort of pushes pause on this scene, and it's actually not completed. This scene is completed somewhere else that we're not going to talk about today. Maybe someday we'll talk about that. Okay, so we're not going to do that today. But Allah interjects with the scene and makes a couple of like declarations. He first starts off, Alam ya'ni lilladhina amanu. So the whole scene happened. You know, the believers had light, munafiqun did not. They said, were we not with you? The wall came down. The believers responded back saying, yeah, you were, but you did these 4 things. You put yourselves into troubling situations. You procrastinated, and which led you to doubts, and then your false hopes deluded you. And then that's complete. And they're said that it's being told to them that no fidya will be taken from you, no compensation will be taken from you, nor from the disbelievers. And ma'wakum an-nar, and your final destination will be the fire. Wa bi'sal masir, what a terrible place to go. And the scene sort of ends. And Allah, right after that scene, brilliantly puts this ayah next. This ayah is beautiful, but to me, very hard hitting. Alam ya'ni lilladhina amanu. Hasn't it already been time? Wasn't it already time? لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, for those that believed, أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُم, that their hearts should be full of awe, that their hearts should be melting from awe, should be extremely humbled, بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, by the remembrance of Allah, or لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, by the remembrance of Allah, وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. What remembrance of Allah? The thing that He sent down from the truth. This is so embarrassing, actually, when you think about this. First of all, He's talking about these munafiqun. And when He sort of now highlights the problem, what He highlights is the lack of Quran with these people. Alam ya'ni lilladhina amanu. Hasn't it been time? Like, when is going to be time? When is it going to be the time? Alam ya'ni is a very extreme way to ask this question. Not, is it time? Hasn't it been time? Where have you been? You're so late. An takhsha qulubuhum. That their hearts should be in awe from what I sent down. And notice, by the way, he could have said, لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَالْقُرْآنِ, by the remembrance of Allah, meaning the Quran. He said, لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, by the remembrance of Allah, وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ, and that thing that He sent down, as if it's so unknown now, like you don't even know what that thing is anymore. So He doesn't call it Al-Quran anymore. He says, وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Ma is used when the thing is unknown. Just like men is used when the people are unknown. You don't know who they are. Otherwise you would say, الَّذِي. He could have even said, وَالَّذِي نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. And the specific thing that He sent, you know the thing that He sent down. But no, He uses ma. The thing that you have no idea what it is anymore. وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ. And that they shouldn't be from the people that were given the book prior. مِن قَبْلِ فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدِ. And then a long time passed over them. فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. And their hearts became hard. وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. And many of them are corrupt. Allah is really putting us in our place here. I will call out first of all. He's really putting us in our place. Hasn't it been time that you rekindle your relationship with the Quran, is what's being said here. I'll remind you that this is a surah that the audience are who? Who's the audience of this? Us, specifically, actually. We'll say believers, but let's just keep it to the people in this room. Keep it to me and you, actually, right now, okay? We're the audience. And He's calling out to us, you're late. Where has this been? When is your heart going to feel any sort of awe for what I sent down? Do you even remember what that thing is anymore? وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Didn't you hear about the stories of the people before you? And that you shouldn't be like them. By the way, فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدِ. A long time passed over them, فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. And then their hearts became hard. Another place where Allah talks about the hardness of the heart is actually, He talks about it like rust. And by the way, this surah is called Hadid, which is interesting, right? No, really, I think it's actually kind of interesting. But He talks about it like rust. Where you, like, for example, you ever kept your bike out in the middle of the rain when you were a kid, even though your dad told you to put it in, you left it out in the middle of the rain, and then if you leave it out even for a day, what do you start seeing? Spots of what? Of rust. Life is washing over you, and your heart is slowly but surely getting harder and harder and rustier, until Allah basically, by the way, qasat, or qasa, it's only used for hearts in the Quran, for hardness of hearts, or used for rocks. but only where rocks are being compared to hearts actually. So they're becoming hard like rocks. فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ, and many of them become corrupt. Are you going to be corrupt like them? Is this where you're headed? Do you want to be like these people? And then one of my favorite ayahs of the book is this next one, like bar none. I love this ayah. اعلموا, very short but like very hard hitting. I love this. Really listen to this. I'm going to give it to you and then I want one of you to explain it to me. It's not obvious right away what it's saying. اعلموا, you had all better know, أن الله, that Allah, يحيي الأرض بعد موتها, that Allah brings life to the dead earth after it dies. So the scene he's painting right now is, imagine, like, I don't know if your dad gardens like mine does, but in the beginning of like growing season, everything's dead. It's like dry. You go like this and it crumbles like dust. The trees are dead. There's no plants. And then Allah sends the rain, and the rain comes down, and the garden comes back to life. But Allah's not really talking about gardening or plants, is He? So what's He talking about here? He's talking about our hearts. He just talked about them before, قَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ, right? Obviously the heart was just brought up. And now He's giving us a physical example from physical reality, so that we can, every time we see a tree, we're like, man, I got to read more Quran. Every time we see a dead tree, we're like, Ya Allah, what have I done? You think about yourself. The same way that the earth dies sometimes, and then a rain cloud comes, and rain falls down, and then the rain comes through the dirt, penetrates the seed bursts with life, and what you would call a garbage estate, a worthless piece of land, becomes one of wealth and growth and luscious crop. You understand the imagery? The same way that it happens is the same thing that when Allah, He also sent down Quran. وَمَا نَزَلَ مِنَ الْحَقِّ, the thing that He sent down from the truth. And that came down, and it mixed with a bunch of people's dead hearts. And something inside those hearts burst like a seed, and eventually led to faith. Just like that person that we learned about. That they were thinking about Allah, they don't know anything about Him, and all of a sudden this message hit, and something inside them burst. We call this, or Allah named this for us, Nurun ala Nur. The light of the Quran hits the light within the chest, and a reaction happens, and growth happens. Just like you ever see a time lapse of like a seed where it gets burst open and the tree, or like a plant pops out, that's what happens in your chest as well. But what's scary about this is, do you even water yourself? Do you even water? Do I even water myself? I won't even say you. Do I even water myself? Am I just perpetually this dead tree? Is that all I am? And then I think I'm a Muslim? The one huge problem, and I will tell you right now, I'm just like, I think we should just call this what it is, because I think it's really important that we just kind of face it. The Jews of the stories of the Jews that we have in Quran, are they positive stories mostly or negative stories mostly? Very negative stories. These people were wild, mashallah. I mean, wow. Like they're given a book, like literally a physical book that you just saw the guy go to the mountain and saw a light, and then you saw him come down and give you the book from God, etched in tablets, and he comes back and you're worshiping a cow. Someone is brought back to life in front of you, and you still won't obey the Messenger alayhi salam. You still won't obey Musa alayhi salam. And the believer reads this and they're like, how in the world could a people possibly become like this? What was wrong with them? They must have a mental illness or something. There is no mental illness. The mental illness is they'd abandoned their book. That was their mental illness. That nation's mental illness that caused them to do disgusting things to each other, to other people. Sometimes they got it right, but most of the time they got it wrong, actually, from the story that we know. The Jews mostly got it wrong. They, from the Quran's perspective, which is the correct perspective, is Allah's perspective, the one that gave them the book to begin with, they were mostly a failure. But why were they a failure? The one sentence answer, they're a failure because they abandoned the book Allah gave them. They would recite it. They went to tajweed classes every week. They learned tafsir even sometimes. They would go like this and recite. That means you're extra religious if you go like this, right? But they had no idea what it was saying. Maybe they didn't even care. And when you have this identity of a Muslim, but you have no book, all sorts of stupidity comes out of it. Wallahi, it's shameful. And I'm not talking about this, talk about like, oh, look what the Jews were like. No. Why does Allah give us those stories? Don't be like these people. What did He just say? And so that you don't become like people that they were given a book, they abandoned it, and their hearts became hard. Their hearts became that same dead earth that rain doesn't come to. That's what they became. Are you going to be the same way? And wallahi, so far, yeah, we're the same way. Are we not? Are we not the same way? What is the Quran to us in our lives? The Quran is something that when a baby is born, we recite it. The Quran is something that when someone dies, you put it in the background, but you talk over coffee. Like you're not listening to it. It's just nice to have when someone dies. So he feels extra special. Like maybe this gives him an extra level in Jannah if you put Quran in the background that you ignore. That's probably something good to do. It's a necklace that you wear. It's something you hang in your house that you bought with haram money. That's all it's become. And when a people have this weird shell, weak eggshell of an identity, and they abandon the book that Allah gave them, there is no other word but stupidity. وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. They're just corrupt. And well, look at us. Well, honestly, look at us even politically in the world. How are we doing as Muslims? Are we doing well? No. We right now are the dead earth. Do not get me wrong. There are seeds that are growing. Oh, it's beautiful believers doing beautiful work. But even those beautiful believers, why are they beautiful believers? Because everything they do goes back to what? Quran, in a real sense. Not something they hang around the rearview mirrors or hang around their necks or hang up on their walls. Something that they learn and understand and try to implement in their lives. It becomes the light in their chest and the light out of their hand. That's what the Quran becomes to them. It's shameful what we've done. And you will literally be, what Allah is saying right here, is without Quran, call yourself a Muslim all you want. You are a dead person walking. That's all you are. You are dead earth. You provide nothing to anyone. What good does dead earth do to the farmer? Does it provide any good to the one that owns that land? It provides no sustenance, no shade, no medicinal benefits, nothing. And that's who we become. We become a people that offer nothing. Or worse, وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. We aspire sometimes to nothing. All the time, a lot of the time we're fasiqun. We're people that corrupt. We're people that make it harder for other people, for even non-Muslims actually to live. Just like Allah says, He teaches us to make the dua in Baqarah, وَلَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Do you know that? And Ya Allah, we're taught by Allah to say, Ya Allah, don't make us a fitna, don't make us a test for people that don't believe. Well, are we not? Like we make fun all the time. You see Trump on this last debate, for example, these Haitians, they're eating cats and they're eating dogs. You hear them talk about that garbage? And everyone believes it. Yes or no? People from Haiti are like, what's this clown talking about? But people don't care. They're like not here. If you want to know someone's opinion, you don't have to ask them. Just turn on Fox News. They'll tell you what they believe. You don't have to ask your neighbor anymore. Just turn on the TV. What's trending on Twitter? That's their belief system. That's all it is for so many people. Because they are qawmun la yaqilun. They have become a nation that do not think. But guess what? We have also become a qawm la naqilun. We are a nation that we do not think. And by the way, what does it end? قَدْ بَيَّنَّا لَكُمُ الْآيَاتِ. We have clarified the ayat. And remember, what is an ayah? We learned from the last passage. An ayah is not just these. It's obviously these as well. But it's also the external ayat of the world. Yes? It's also that as well. We have made ayat so clear to all of you. The problem is not the book, it's you. We made it so clear. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. So that you can think. What's wrong with you that you don't think? I'll point out again, in the last passage when Allah described good people, that they can receive the message, He started with the heart, they remember Allah, and then He said what? What else do? They think. And here again, the heart and then thinking. SubhanAllah, it's the same thing happening actually. Fix your heart and then you will be people that think. If ever you question why are Muslims so behind, it's because we put this behind our backs. I will ask you not to praise this program. Well, I really not to do that, because I literally, like, this is a small effort of stuff that I learned that I want to share. Where else do you even learn what Quran has to tell you? Do we even make that attempt, number one? And number two, do we even provide that attempt to other people? Do we even provide that? And wallahi, like for me at least growing up, the answer was absolutely not. I told you the first time I learned what an ayah meant, or like what a surah that I knew for years, and I learned what it meant, I got really angry. I got really emotional, like I almost cried. I cried even, because I'm like, I didn't know this was like that. I didn't know the Quran had so much. It was literally it was amma yatasa'alun, and I started bawling. Like it was something so special about that to me. There was a lesson in there that I'm like, wow. And then I paused and I'm like, why did no one teach me this? What is this? We are actively failing ourselves and our children and the children of our community by not making this priority, not knowing what's inside of it, not trying to be people of Quran. You know, back in the day, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when someone memorized Quran, they did not use the word hafiz. You know that? Like we say, if someone's he memorized it or she memorized the entire book, we call them a hafiz, a hafiza. Yes? You know what word they used to say? You were someone that memorized, the title you were given was not hafiz. It was not memorizer. No, that's too little. That's what a small thing. A 10-year-old can memorize Quran. Doesn't mean they know what's inside of it. Not to belittle it, but come on, that's not the achievement. You know what they used to call huffaz, what we call huffaz? They called them hamil, carriers. They carry this message. They act on this message. They are people that if you see them in their business, you see how they're a doctor, you see how they're a good therapist, you see how they're good students, how they're good people in general. They're carrying Quran. They become a light for everyone else. They see them and they're like, something's different about that person. Wallahi, is anything different about us? Really? Don't just shake your heads. I mean, there's something, or nod your heads. Just think about it for yourself. Do I have this? And I want to call out again. The example that Allah just gave us was dead earth, rain came, earth came back to life. Okay, rain comes one time. What happens eventually to that same garden? What happens eventually if you don't take care of it? It dies again. It dies again. We are being taught here the same relationship that we have with water. Allah right here is calling out the Quran is like water. You do not clean yourself once a month and go like, oh, I showered 3 weeks ago. I'm good. I drank water 7 days ago. I think I'm okay. Are you crazy? That's not how this works. With Allah comparing Quran to water, we have now the same mentality. You cannot just say, I read Quran a week ago. I read it the whole thing twice during Ramadan, so I'm good, I think, for 2 or 3 years. No, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. This needs to be a daily thing for all of us. To read it, to contemplate it, to try to actually let it enter our hearts. I'll end it with this. A lot of us, and I praise you guys, wallahi, for being here. And may Allah reward you guys. And may the angels be around us making dua for us and for making istighfar for us. Say ameen. But a lot of us, we learn about it academically. Like you guys are here right now. I had to learn about it to teach you guys even. But that's not exactly all this is about. It's possible that the water comes down and hits the earth, but the dirt doesn't take it in, or the seed doesn't take it in. Learning about it is not enough. If you really want a good litmus test to whether or not you're a person of Quran, look at your salah. This is why I invite you guys to memorize what we're learning about, by the way. It's because I want you to use it in your salah. If you reflect on it in your salah, that's real Quran. That will actually change your life outside of salah. That will change your life. Not just coming to a lecture. I don't care how good the lecture is. Great, you have water that fell on you. What are you going to do now? You're just wet. What's it going to do next exactly? We really have to question ourselves with this. Hadid is a hard-hitting surah, wallahi. This is like a beating for Muslims that is absolutely necessary. This is a conversation that is literally timeless for all believers. May Allah protect us from being munafiqun, from being people that put ourselves in fitna, and then they procrastinate, and then they start doubting, and then have false hopes delude them, and may Allah make us people of the Quran truly, truly. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. We have 9 minutes until Isha proper starts, right? Until Salah starts. Maybe we'll have reflections. We haven't done this in a while, I'm sorry. I think a lot of it's timing, and a lot of it honestly is my fault as well. But we'll open it not questions, but reflections.